Silent stare. Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan refused to acknowledge each other on stage. Fans in tears. The atmosphere was supposed to be electric. Lights flashed, cameras clicked, and fans screamed with uncontainable joy. But the moment Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan stepped onto the same stage after months of speculation and silence, everything shifted. Instead of the warm smiles and playful glances the world once knew, there was a silent stare so sharp it could cut through glass. For the first time in years, the two men who had once shared not only a stage but also the most delicate parts of their lives refused to acknowledge each other. And it was that silence, the kind that echoed louder than thunder, that left fans clutching their chests, some even in tears, whispering, "What happened to them?" The stage that became a battlefield. It wasn't just any event. This was the Golden Star Awards night, a place where both Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan had once walked hand in hand, not literally, but in spirit, glowing with brotherhood, chemistry, and something unspoken that the audience always felt. This year, anticipation was higher than ever. The rumors of their rift had reached boiling point. Xiao Zhan reportedly walking off a set after spotting Wang Yibo and Tan Seong Yun together, Wang Yibo's cryptic clarification that left more questions than answers, and the endless media spins that suggested betrayal, heartbreak, and unspeakable truths. So when the spotlight fell on both of them, fans expected, if not reconciliation, at least a smile, a nod, or a fleeting glance. But instead, what they got was silence carved in stone. Xiao Zhan stood on the far left, regal in his black suit. His eyes dark but sparkling with restrained emotions. Wang Yibo stood on the far right, green velvet jacket hugging his frame, hands in his pockets, jaw tight. Neither moved. Neither blinked. Neither gave the other the smallest acknowledgement. It was the kind of moment that makes time slow down, the kind of silence that swallows music, applause, and cheers whole. Fans break down in the crowd. "Why won't they look at each other?" A fan was overheard sobbing in the audience, clutching a Xiao Zhan lightboard so tightly her knuckles turned white. Another fan live streaming the event whispered tearfully into her phone, "I came here hoping for peace, hoping they'd prove the world wrong. But now, this feels like goodbye." On Weibo, within minutes, hashtags exploded. Hashtag Wang Yibo silent stare. Hashtag Xiao Zhan coldness. Hashtag what happened to Zhan. Millions of comments poured in. Some begged for the truth, others defended one side or the other, while the rest were simply broken-hearted, unable to accept what they had just witnessed. The unspoken history. To understand the pain of this moment, you have to look back at where it all began. Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan weren't just co-stars. They were two souls tied by an invisible string. At least, that's what fans believed. Their interactions always carried an electricity that defied explanation. Their silences used to feel comfortable. Their glances used to speak louder than words. But cracks began to show. The day Xiao Zhan reportedly walked out of a filming set after seeing Wang Yibo and Tan Seong Yun together. The emotional roller coaster of Xiao Zhan disappearing from public events, while Wang Yibo appeared with a hardened expression. Wang Yibo's statement, "We're fine," that did little to calm the storm, because his eyes told a different story. The Golden Star Awards was supposed to be their chance at redemption. Instead, it became the night that ripped hearts apart. A shocking twist. Tan Seong Yun in the audience. As if the tension on stage wasn't enough, sharp-eyed fans spotted Tan Seong Yun seated near the front row. The actress, caught between Su Kai's unwavering devotion and the rumors linking her to Wang Yibo, seemed frozen as the tension played out. Some swore they saw Xiao Zhan's eyes flicker briefly in her direction, his jaw clenching before he looked away. Others claimed Wang Yibo avoided looking at her altogether, as if the entire situation was a wound too raw to touch. Her presence wasn't just coincidence. To many fans, it was a deliberate twist of fate, a reminder of the domino that toppled everything. Backstage explosion. While the stage was cold and silent, the real storm reportedly erupted backstage. Sources close to the event claimed that once the cameras turned away, Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo were ushered into separate holding rooms to avoid confrontation. But the walls backstage are thin, and whispers spread quickly. One staff member allegedly overheard Xiao Zhan's raised voice. "If you can't even face me on stage, then what's the point anymore?" Minutes later, another witness claimed Wang Yibo snapped back in frustration. "You're the one who walked away first." The backstage crew described the atmosphere as suffocating, a clash of silence and unspoken words exploding into sharp fragments that no one dared piece together. Su Kai steps in. As if fate wasn't cruel enough, Su Kai, Tan Seong Yun's devoted partner, was also present at the awards. When the whispers about the backstage clash began spreading, Su Kai was seen leaving Tan Seong Yun's side to approach the commotion. Fans caught a blurry photo of Su Kai's hand pressed against Xiao Zhan's shoulder, seemingly trying to calm him down. It was a sight no one expected. Su Kai, once caught in his own storm of controversy with Tan Seong Yun, now appearing as the mediator in the chaos of Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan. What he said remains a mystery. But the fact that he stepped in at all added another layer of drama to an already unbearable night. The moment that broke millions. When the award for Best Partnership was announced, the tension reached its peak. The screen flashed clips of Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan's legendary performances together. The laughter, the teamwork, the bond that seemed unbreakable. The crowd roared, half with joy, half with sorrow. And yet, when the camera zoomed in, both men remained statues. No smiles, no glances, no acknowledgement of each other. It was the silent stare, captured in high definition, that ripped through every fan's heart. Some compared it to watching a bridge burn. Others said it felt like witnessing a love story end in slow motion. For many, it was simply unbearable. Social media meltdown. By midnight, the internet was in flames. "I waited years for this moment, and now I wish I hadn't seen it. The silent stare hurts more than words ever could. Please just talk to each other before it's too late." Fandom wars reignited, with accusations, defenses, and theories flooding every platform. Some swore that this was all for publicity. Others insisted it was heartbreak laid bare. But the majority, they were just broken. Because whether you shipped them as partners, friends, or something more, one truth was undeniable. Something precious had been lost. Silent stare. The moment that shook millions. The Golden Star Awards were supposed to be a night of celebration. Glitter rained down from the ceiling, music thundered through the speakers, and fans screamed until their voices cracked. But in that one fragile instant, when Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan stood on the same stage, time seemed to stop. It wasn't the applause that mattered. It wasn't the flashing cameras or the golden trophies waiting to be claimed. It was the space between them, a space that once held laughter, secrets, and unspoken promises, now filled with nothing but a silence so heavy it drowned the entire hall. The first glance that never happened. As they walked out, fans braced themselves. Phones were raised, ready to capture the reunion of legends. Xiao Zhan, elegant in black, held himself with the grace of someone who has mastered hiding his pain. Wang Yibo, cool in velvet green, exuded a quiet strength, but his eyes betrayed something raw, something breaking. Everyone expected it. That familiar glance, that subtle acknowledgement, that moment where their worlds would collide again. But it never came. Instead, Xiao Zhan looked straight ahead, his jaw tight, his lips a thin line. Wang Yibo did the same, refusing to let his gaze wander left. It wasn't avoidance, it was defiance. And in that single refusal, the crowd felt their hearts split in two. Fans cry out. From the audience, the reaction was immediate. Some screamed their names, desperate to force a connection. Others chanted Zhan, hoping the echo would remind the two men of who they once were together. But the louder the crowd became, the more deafening their silence grew. A girl in the second row clutched her banner of Xiao Zhan so tightly her hands trembled. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, "Just look at him. Just once." A fanboy live-streaming the event buried his face in his hands and muttered into his phone, "We've lost them. They're gone." For years, fans had painted their bond as unbreakable. Now that illusion crumbled in real time. The camera that caught everything. Cameramen, trained to capture the most captivating moments, found themselves caught between duty and disbelief. They zoomed in, framing the distance between Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan. At one point, the camera lingered on Xiao Zhan's eyes. For a heartbeat, just one. His gaze faltered, drifting ever so slightly toward Wang Yibo. But before it could land, he caught himself, his lashes dropping like a curtain. Seconds later, the camera found Wang Yibo. His lips pressed together. He shifted the microphone in his hand, his fingers trembling almost imperceptibly. He adjusted his jacket, exhaled sharply, and forced his eyes away. Those tiny cracks in their armor were captured, magnified, and broadcast to millions. And the world held its breath. Tan Seong Yun's silent witness. And then, as though fate itself wanted to twist the knife, the cameras cut briefly to the audience, where Tan Seong Yun sat. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, her knuckles pale, her face unreadable. Some fans swore she blinked rapidly, as though holding back tears. Others said her lips parted, as if she wanted to stand and scream. "Stop this. Just talk." Her presence was a cruel reminder of the storm that had begun this rift. To the world, she wasn't just an actress in the audience. She was the ghost that haunted every unspoken word between them. The presenter's awkward pause. When the award presenters announced the nominees, the tension on stage was palpable. Usually, co-stars would exchange smiles, maybe even a playful nudge. But Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan stood like strangers forced into proximity. The presenter hesitated, her voice faltering as she introduced them. Even she seemed to feel the weight of the moment, glancing nervously between the two. And yet neither moved, neither blinked, neither acknowledged the other's existence. It was as though the stage had been split into two halves, one belonging to Xiao Zhan, the other to Wang Yibo, with a canyon of silence yawning in between. The fans' plea. By now, social media had already erupted. Hashtags were trending globally within minutes. A hashtag Yizhan Silent War. A hashtag Golden Star Cold Moment. Hashtag Silent Stare Kills. Comment sections were oceans of heartbreak. "I can't believe I waited years for this. Do you feel how much it hurts? That silence speaks louder than hate. They owe us nothing, but my heart is shattered." The entire fandom felt united, not in celebration but in grief. The music that betrayed them. Then came the cruelest twist of all. When the award show played the highlight reel of their iconic scenes together, the laughter, the stolen glances, the fights that turned into reconciliations, the audience erupted in cheers. But on stage, Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan remained unmoved. The giant screen behind them replayed their history like a ghostly reminder of what once was, while they stood in icy silence, refusing to acknowledge even the memory of their bond. It was unbearable. The reel, meant to honor them, became a weapon, slicing into every fan's heart. Subtle slip. And yet, for those watching closely, a single detail did not go unnoticed. When Xiao Zhan adjusted his microphone, his hand shook. He curled his fingers into a fist, pressed it against his thigh, and exhaled slowly, as though fighting back something overwhelming. Wang Yibo, at almost the exact same moment, tilted his head down and bit the inside of his cheek, a nervous habit fans had memorized long ago. They weren't made of stone. They were breaking, silently, invisibly, but breaking nonetheless. The unbearable ending. When the segment ended, and the applause thundered through the hall, both men bowed politely. But when they turned to exit, something extraordinary happened. For the briefest moment, half a second maybe less, Wang Yibo's eyes flicked toward Xiao Zhan. And Xiao Zhan, as though sensing it, turned his head ever so slightly in return. Their eyes almost met. Almost. But then they both looked away, each disappearing into the shadows of opposite wings, leaving the audience gasping, sobbing, and reaching for what could have been. The aftermath. As the night ended, one truth remained. The silent stare was no ordinary silence. It was the loudest scream they had ever shared with the world. It was heartbreak, betrayal, love, and loss, all folded into one unbearable pause. And though they never spoke, never touched, Never even acknowledged each other. That silence told the entire story. They were not fine. They were broken. And the world was watching.